Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. It's a podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time, we were talking about identity style, which is the characteristic ways you confront, interpret, and respond to the experience of your life. And we're going to take back up on that. Generativity, identity, and age. And of course, generativity is where you want something to outlive you, and of course, you know what your identity is and your age. Erickson saw generativity as an aspect of identity formation, meaning he, thought it was part of, forming your identity. As he wrote, I am what survives me. And a lot of us feel that way. And like I said, I wanted the charity to survive me. It didn't work out. But, I'm still sitting here teaching. So, hopefully I'm doing some good. Research supports this connection. In a study of 40 middle-class female bank employees in their early 40s who were mothers, of school-aged children, women who had achieved identity by Marsh's criteria were the most psychologically healthy. So, if you got your stuff together, by the time you're 40, you're going to be the most psychologically healthy group of folks. I think I was about there. I think maybe 42, 43, So, I did good, I guess. They also express the greatest degree of generativity, bearing out Erickson's view that successful achievement of identity paves the way for other tasks. So when you have successfully become who you want to be, you've achieved your identity that you had imagined, then you can move on to other things. It's like I was hearing a preacher talk about it the other day. It's like they wanted this, they got this, and they're like, so they moved on to something more. And it's excuse me. I used to compare, with my husband. I talk to him about this every now and then, and with some of my life coaching clients, life to the game of Frogger. That was like one of our favorite games when I was a kid, Frogger. And you get on the log, and you're riding the log, but then you want to make another jump. You want to move. You want to move. You want to move until you get to the other side. And that's kind of how life is. Once you achieve one step, you'll want to take another step, theoretically, hopefully, because you never should stop growing, to get to the other side, which will be the afterlife. Oh my goodness. Instruments, behavioral checklists, cue sorts, and self-reports, all of which psychologists use, have been devised to measure and refine the meaning of generativity. Using such techniques, researchers have found that while the age at which individuals achieve generativity varies, middle-aged people tend to score higher on generativity than younger ones. Because, we're thinking about that. We're like getting at our middle age, and we're like, oh, okay, well, I had wanted to do this, and, maybe I need to play catch up. And older ones, because the older ones are now just my father. He's a trip. He's 83 years old, and according to him, he's just sitting there waiting to die. So, hopefully you're not, but there we are. And here are some questions from a self-report test for generativity. I try to pass along the knowledge I have gained through my experiences. Like I said, in India, they have a whole system set up like this, where when you're in your 50s, it's your job to teach. You're supposed to teach what you learned building your business or whatever in your 20s and 30s and 40s. So, I do not feel that other people need me. Of course, that would make you be depressed and unsatisfied with your life. I think I would like the work of a teacher. And again, that is for a lot of people. I feel as though I have made a difference to many people. And like I said, we served 188 people, and I served some more with the, ministry. So I hope I did enough good. I do not volunteer to work for a charity. Well, I was the executive director of one, so yeah, I do. I have made and created things that have had an impact on other people. And I got 3 exhibits in galleries, 3 different galleries right now. So, hopefully, and I've heard from some people who read my books that it did them some good. So, I try to be creative in most things that I do. I think that I will be remembered for a long time after I die. And most of us are not. That's like my children didn't know my grandma at all because she died before they were born. So I go and visit her, and I've said, I promised her, I'd come to the cemetery. Is anyone going to do that when I'm gone? And they're like, I don't know. So because they didn't know her, they don't really feel that need to do that. And so I feel like after I'm gone, she'll kind of be forgotten, and that's a shame, but that's how life works sometimes. I believe that society cannot be responsible for providing food and shelter for all homeless people, and that is a kind of a selfish attitude, and it just depends on where you came from. Others would say that I have made unique contributions to society. If I were unable to have children of my own, I would like to adopt children. And I always thought that. I always thought, when mine were grown, I might adopt some more. But now, it's not going to happen. I'm not sure I got the patience to do it again. And I know my husband's got some mental problems. He had a stroke, and he's got some brain damage. And I know he's not got the patience for it, so that's not gonna happen. I have important skills that I try to teach others, and I did. I feel that I have done nothing that will survive after I die, and that's sad if you feel that way. Maybe it's time to do something. In general, my actions do not have a positive effect on others, and that's a shame if that's true. Maybe you're being too much of a negative person. You need to examine why that is. I feel as though I have done nothing of worth to contribute to others. And again, that's a shame. That might have to do with low self-esteem. I've made many commitments to many different kinds of people, groups, and activities in my life. And that's kind of how you should be. You should be, keeping up with doing things. Other people say that I am a very productive person. And that might not necessarily be good, because that might mean you're a workhorse and you're more concerned with production than, living your life. I have a responsibility to improve the neighborhood in which I live. Now, we had a woman like that was getting on everybody's nerves. She was like calling the county on folks and, doing nitpicking on everything. Like, I have daffodils growing up and down my walk and in my driveway. Okay, they need to stay for a while to let those green leaves absorb the sunlight to make them a healthy daffodil for next spring. Well, in between those daffodils, when they're sitting there, grows, yes, some of the grass, weedy stuff. Now, she evidently didn't like that, so she had, the county coming down on me, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, try to weed eat the, things without cutting down my daffodils? People just don't know how things work anymore, so, but she was nitpicking on people's cars being in the yard, and like we were just moving cars so people could get out of the driveway, and not parking 2 wheels on the grass, putting 4 on the grass. She was just nitpicking on everybody. Well, finally she's gone because some of our neighbors are not such nice people, and they made her life pretty hard, and no offense, she deserved it. Because when you're coming at your neighbors like that all the time, no one's going to like you. I mean, no one's going to like you if you're up their butt all the time about how they keep their place. That's why I say I'd never live in an HOA. You can pay me to live in an HOA, because I don't want anybody telling me how my house needs to look or yard. No, to heck with that. No, it's going to be what I want it to be. And if you have a problem with it, you can just keep driving by and not say anything. That's how that works. People come to me for advice. Yes, I'm afraid so. All the time, every day. I feel as though my contributions will exist after I die. Well, maybe. Somebody might Google something on YouTube and I'll pop up. In a large national random survey of adults 25 to 74, middle-aged and older adults reported providing more assistance and emotional support to others than did younger adults. And that's because the younger adults look up to the older adults and they, well, how did y'all do it? How did y'all get through it? And things of that nature. So that's just a gimme. They also expressed higher levels of civic responsibility, but younger adults felt more direct generative obligations to their families and others. And that's because it's the drive at that age. This suggests that a lessening of primary family responsibilities may free middle-aged and older adults to express generativity on a broader scale. Yeah, because if you don't have to, watch the kids all the time, you can do stuff for you. By almost all measures, women, especially educated women, reported a higher level of generativity than men. But in old age, men's and women's generative concerns were equal. So again, all in all, in the end, we're all the same. The few longitudinal studies of generativity also support this connection. As the men in Valiant Grant study approached and moved through middle age, an increasing proportion were rated as having achieved generativity. 50% at age 40 and 83% at 60. An analysis of two longitudinal studies of women from the 1964 class of Radcliffe College and the 1967 class of University of Michigan suggests that while the desire for generativity tends to arise in young adulthood, its accomplishment and the sense of capacity for generativity tends to come in middle age. Generativity at any point in time may be affected by social expectations, social roles, work, marital parenting, civic, and the like, and their timing and sequence, as well as by gender, education, race, ethnicity, and age group. And again, like I said, everything is relative. Everything contributes to your life. So all of these things are going to affect your ability or desire to be, generative. Generativity may express itself differently or with different timing in gays and lesbians, who may develop intimate relationships or become parents later than heterosexuals typically do. And that's because of the stigma that we still have here in America. Excuse me, the young people who are scared to come out or, don't want to come out later, and therefore they live their lives later than do, more accepted heterosexual relationships. Or they never have these experiences. And, that's a shame that a person can't be a whole person because there's a stigma around just who they are. Many gays and lesbians have expressed generativity through activism for gay rights or other causes. And, we all know, the milk. We got the movie about that. So, that outlived his life. Narrative psychology. Identity as a life story. The relatively new field of narrative psychology views the development of the self as a continuous process of constructing one's own life story, a dramatic narrative to help make sense of one's life. Indeed, some narrative psychologists view identity itself as this internalized story or script. People follow the script they have created as they act out their identity. And a lot of folks, we start that as little kids. I'm going to be this when I grow up. I'm going to be that, And so we take classes geared towards that. We go to college geared towards that. We become that. We might stay at that, or we might decide, hey, I like this other thing better. So, our script should be changing all the time. Excuse me. Midlife often is a time for revision of the life story, because if you haven't gotten where you wanted to be by then, you're like, oh, I need to do something different so I can get my deal done. Or for a break in the continuity and coherence of the storyline. Excuse me. The themes of identity narratives reflect culture and cohort. Because like I said, everything, plays. Whatever generation you're in, and whatever culture you're in, that's going to play a part. The in-depth interviews with 20 New England men who came of age during the 1940s and 1950s, a critical break in their stories tended to occur in their 50s in conjunction with loss of an active fathering role. For these men, whose formative years had been focused on family and security, the organizing axis of their narrative identities was suddenly gone. So they were used to being the father, the man of the house, and when the kids were grown, they were no longer that, and they were like, what do I do now? A younger group of men who came of age during the Vietnam era told very different narratives. Many of these baby boomers had been skeptics or rebels from adolescence on, alienated from traditional roles. Their midlife shift was toward a search for meaning and fulfillment and more stable families and careers. So some of these guys start a little bit later, with this, and want to know, who am I? And that's because a lot of them, drafted or went into the service early, so they didn't have a chance to be, who they wanted to be. They didn't have a chance to be a father early on, so they had to play catch up. Their break with the past reflected a belated quest for an adult identity. As people grow older, generativity may become an important theme of the life story. A generativity script can give the life story a happy ending. It is built on the conviction that generative acts make a difference and that the results of one's life can outlive the self. And for a lot of people, that's the goal. Some people don't care. Some people like, I want to leave something behind. I want people to see my footprint. Highly generative adults often tell a commitment story, because doing something that's going to be generative is a commitment. No one's going to throw it in your lap. It's not going to happen by itself. You got to do the work. Typically, such people have enjoyed privileged lives and want to alleviate the suffering of others. Well, I did not live a privileged life. I lived a very unprivileged life, and that's why I want to really alleviate the suffering of others, because I know how it feels. They dedicate their lives to social improvement and do not swerve from that mission despite grievous obstacles, and you will face some, which eventually have positive outcomes. Because if you stick to it, it's like riding a bike. You practice, you was falling over and wobbling, but eventually you got it right. Moral exemplars organize their lives around such commitment stories. And like I said about, some folks don't even start doing a thing until they're in middle age. So, but they know this is a good thing, a right thing, and, I'm going to do this. Gender identity. In many studies during the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, middle-aged men were more open about feelings, more interested in intimate relationships, and more nurturing, characteristics traditionally labeled as feminine, than at earlier ages. So we change a little in middle age. Whereas middle-aged women were more assertive, self-confident, and achievement-oriented. Characteristics traditionally labeled as masculine. So there's a little bit of change there. Some social scientists attributed this development to hormonal changes at midlife. And that's true because men's testosterone levels go down and women's estrogen levels go down. So they were at a more, equal level. Again, like I said, it all equals out, folks. My goodness. Carl Jung said it was part of the process of individualization, or balancing the personality. Psychologist Daniel Gottman offers an explanation that goes further than Jung's. Traditional gender roles, according to Gottman, evolved to ensure the security and well-being of growing children. Because, like I said, back in the caveman days, it behooved the woman to be able to think quick on her feet, so she could snatch that baby up and run and find hiding places and think fast on her feet. So her emotional and logical sides of the brain need to talk to each other, and that's why women have 3 times the connections in the corpus callosum of her brain. So men think we're more emotional, but we're actually not. It's just that both sides are talking to each other. We're a little quicker on the draw, and that's why women have intuition, as they call it. But it's really just that's how our brains work. And men, it behooves them to be modal, to shift gears between emotion and logic. And if you've ever, been with a man when he's in emotional mode, he's not thinking logical. They have to shift gears. It's like we're an automatic and they're a stick shift. So, let's see. The mother must be the caregiver, the father their provider. And that's back in the day. We know it's not like that anymore. Like I said, I got a nephew raising his daughter now. Once active parenting is over, there is not just a balancing, but a reversal of roles, a gender crossover. Men, now free to explore their previously repressed feminine side, become more passive. Women become more dominant and independent. These changes may have been normative in the pre-literate agricultural societies the Gottman studied, which had very distinct gender roles, but they are not necessarily universal, because again, not every society has strict man-woman rules. In an era in which most young women combine employment with child rearing, when many men take an active part in parenting, and when childbearing may not even begin until midlife, gender crossover in middle age seems less likely. Indeed, the very use of the terms masculine and feminine to describe personality traits such as dominant and submissive has become questionable. And, a lot of people say it's sexist, to say men are dominant, women are submissive. And it kind of is, I think, In studies that have found increasing masculinization of women and feminization of men across adulthood, the amount and patterns of change varies. One factor seems to be methodology. Some studies have used instruments that measure values, goals, interests, or motivations. For example, the relative priority men and women give to career and family. Other studies have measured personality traits such as competitiveness, a masculine trait, and compliance, a feminine trait. Some studies are longitudinal and others are cross-sectional. So again, it depends on the society you're in, the culture you're in, what is going on with who you are as a male or female. And like we've just found out, in the end, we pretty much all equal out. So it really doesn't matter. Just get along and be good friends to each other. That's good enough. A sequential analysis of data from the 2 longitudinal studies that together followed 20, 30, and 40-year-olds mostly well-educated men and women for more than 2 decades, was designed to deal with these methodological, you know my tongue, issues. Brain, tongue, work together. The personality measures did show age-related change. Both men and women became increasingly masculine or decreasingly feminine during their 20s. However, this trend leveled off by the 40s. Contrary to Gutman's model, there was no gender crossover, nor was there evidence of increasing androgyny or integration of both masculine and feminine traits in successive cohorts. Regardless of age or cohort, men remain more masculine than women. And that's where I'm going to leave you today. I hope this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time. Thanks for watching.